Welcome to Blue Collar Mystics, the under-the-hood approach to the depths of human consciousness. So many mysteries, so little time, so many big words. That's why we aim to take the mystical and make it practical, usable in your everyday life. And we want to hear from you. We want to hear your story. What happened when you started asking yourself the real questions? Like, who am I? What is this? Is it a hologram? Is this some kind of weird cosmic joke? Hey, these are the questions that we are trying to get to the bottom of as we explore the final rabbit hole together here as Blue Collar Mystics. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show, Blue Collar Mystics. This show is distributed by our good friends at Content Safe. I want to shout out to them and have just a quick reminder to subscribe to the podcast, give us a comment below, share it out. Have an awesome show for you guys today. I'm really excited to have somebody that I've been following their work for a long time. Finally get to have a little bit of a conversation with Derrick Broze. Derrick, welcome to the show. Welcome to Blue Collar Mystics, my friend.
Thanks for having me. That was a cool intro you got there.
Thanks, man. I had Lawrence Driggs actually cut that up for me. Cool. And so we definitely have some mutuals, and that's part of the cool thing of connecting and being able to hang out a little bit. And I remember, I think my mom actually was like, the first time I heard of you, she was like, this dude's running for mayor of Houston just to kind of troll the then mayor of Houston and educate people about, coming technology, 5G, all this kind of stuff. So, man, your work has had a profound effect on me, and I know a lot of people. So I want to thank you for that first and foremost off the rip.
Thank you, brother.
Absolutely, dude. Thank you. And if anybody's not familiar, go and check out your main website's The Conscious Resistance. That's Derrick's thing, and he's done the Pyramid of Power. He writes a ton of blogs. He does a lot of activism. How many times have you been arrested?
Well, activism related, probably a handful, 5 to 10 times. In my past life, there were some other arrests, but for activism, all for good things.
and all for a great story too. So be sure to check out some more of Derrick's stuff. I'll add some links to anything you want in the show notes. But sure. Yeah, man, thanks so much for hanging out today. I'm excited to talk about the Greater Reset. That's something that's you guys have been working on, I think, for probably a couple of years now, and it's been something that's been being pushed into development. So let's kind of jump right in there. We all know, we're all well familiar. The cat's out of the bag, right? We hadn't been wearing tinfoil hats because they look cool. We're well aware of what a lot of the people who are in charge of global economics are wanting to push, this Great Reset. So let's talk a little bit about the Greater Reset and what exactly that is.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, thank you, brother, for having me on today and giving me the chance to share some of my ideas and for supporting the work over the years. Tell your mom I said hello.
I will.
So the idea behind the Greater Reset, for one, the main website is thegreaterreset.org. We call it an activation. And when I was working on this with my buddy John Bush, we started thinking it was maybe a couple months, 2 months, 3 months at most after the Great Reset announcement in June 2020, which is the World Economic Forum announcing COVID has shown us why we need to reset capitalism and remake the world and all this fun stuff. And as that idea started to grow and people became more aware of it, I did like a mini documentary, did some articles. There was a bunch of people talking about Great Reset. By the fall of 2020, with the hype of COVID and all the fear porn going on, not only in the mainstream with people afraid of COVID and dying and all that stuff, but even in the alternative community, people starting to, I feel like, a palpable sense of fear because of the Great Reset. Like, oh my God, this is it. This is like the creation of the New World Order. Here, we're finally here. And I was having a conversation with John that fall, and it was just, I was thinking about the fact that the World Economic Forum was getting ready to meet in Davos, Switzerland again in January of 2021. And I was just kind of telling John, it's like, it didn't feel like enough to just sit and wait for them to have this Great Reset, because they announced it in June, but they were going to be having their big unveiling in January of 2021. And it felt like, well, what are we going to do? Just going to sit here and be afraid of them, just complain about it. I knew what would happen is the event will come, people will watch it, cut out clips, and they'll hear some scary things Klaus Schwab said, and we'll write articles about it, we'll talk about it, and that's great. But then what? Just wait till next year, just keep watching it unfold. And it didn't feel like enough. So we started just kind of toying with this idea of what if we met at the same time that they did and try to take on some of the same topics. They often talk about the environment, they talk about technology, they talk about organizing society, organizing communities, essentially. They talk about health and these different areas. And so we started looking at what do they talk about? What do they focus on? How do they approach this? Okay, they have this 5-day meeting of bringing together the best and brightest minds that they think in corporations and government and all these different spheres of influence that they have, and talking about these topics. But of course, they come from a very much centralized, top-down kind of authoritarian perspective. They couch it in a lot of buzzwords, but they really mean like we're here to manage society and tell everybody what the future is going to look like. So we thought, well, what if we come from a grassroots, bottom-up, people-powered perspective and start to invite some of the brightest minds out there in the areas of permaculture and homesteading and food independence, and talk about getting off big tech, and talk about mental, physical, and spiritual health, and talk about building parallel networks and parallel systems, and then talk about, hear from people who have created intentional communities or eco villages or farms and things like that, and just bring together all these amazing people for 5 days of solutions. Nothing about like, here's what the Great Reset's about, here's what COVID debate, this thing or that thing, but just straight 5 days of solutions in each of these areas. And we were able to successfully launch the first one in January 2021, which was still kind of right in the height of everything. And I think it's been beautiful to watch it grow. I mean, since we launched then, it was right when most people couldn't travel. So you go back to January 2021. The way we do it is we host 2 live simultaneous events, which is kind of insane the way we make this happen. It's for free. People can watch online at thegreaterreset.org. So in a couple of weeks on January 18th to the 22nd, if you show up there, you'll just see the live embedded stream. And John's live in Texas, where he lives in Central Texas. I'm live down here in Mexico. And so we have some speakers live in Texas, some speakers live in Mexico, and some speakers streaming in, and then have live audiences both places. And we just, we were able to put it together and launch it in January 2021. Obviously, at that point, there was only so many people who could even travel at all, let alone international travel and things like that. But still, we pulled together about 100 people at the first Greater Reset in Mexico, about the same in Texas. And I think we had 20,000 live viewers the first day, and then throughout the week, about 100,000 live viewers from more than 27 countries. So it was, we realized, okay, there's something special happening with this. And I think it's just the fact that people are desperate for solutions. There's so many people out there who talk about the problems, and we need to talk about the problems if we're going to fix things. I mean, that's not saying we should ignore things, but I think there's people, especially folks who maybe were paying attention prior to COVID, were just like, okay, I'm sick of hearing about how horrible everything is. What can I actually do for my friends and my family and my loved ones and for the coming generations? And it's kind of a lofty goal, I guess, but it's very much what we're aiming to do with this is, build this idea. We don't call it an event or a festival or a conference, although it has elements of all those things. There's music, there's night events, there's community networking, you got the speakers. So it has all those things, but we called it an activation because our goal was truly to let's bring people together, get them motivated, inspired, activated, and then they go home and implement these ideas, or they watch from home with their local community or their family, and then put these ideas into action. And the people who've been taking it serious, we've really seen some amazing life shifts and life changes. People who've told me they met people through the Freedom Cell Network or the Greater Reset, and now they're homeschooling their kids, or they bought land, or they took their money out of the banks, or just whatever particular path they're taking, but they're taking real steps. And I think that's what is needed the most right now.
Man, that's great. I love that. What a great action to take, instead of, like you said, we all see the news, we see the terrible things that are happening, and that's, it is important to be aware of what's going on, but at the same time, to feel helpless. I think many of us, I will say, have been there. I certainly have. And there's nothing like that, to feel helpless and hopeless for the future, to take a little bit of that intention and the energy, and then parlay that into actual real solutions, I think is the only thing we can really do, right? Instead of fight. One thing that I've kind of learned over the past few years is like, whenever we fight directly against something, we're really just giving it more power and energy.
Yeah.
So it's really important to, instead of, you know, getting stuck there at that energetic sort of level, what have you, and reacting, instead to be, you know, more proactive. And so I just love that that's what you're doing. Can we talk a little bit about some little things? Let's say somebody who has no idea where to start, but they want to do something. What's some things that people can begin to do out there?
Sure. Well, I want to say one comment on what you just mentioned there. I think the key word was reactionary. And that is, you know, I've realized over the years, I started doing my activism late 2009, early 2010, very much like on the street level activist, passing out flyers, talking to people, handing out DVDs, that kind of thing. And protests, marches, rallies, the whole thing, all range of activism, building community gardens, hosting music shows and concerts and parties and all kinds of stuff, trying to figure out how to reach people, how to connect to people. And what I found most effective over the years was activism that brings people together, that creates community, right? So maybe there's like a local community garden and you invite some people out. Hey, we're going to have a local musician playing some music. There's going to be some food, and we're going to just build a garden and do some good for the community. When you put food and music together, like, it becomes a party. It becomes something people want to be a part of. And when you start having that, like the group I started years ago was called the Houston Freethinkers. And eventually it became like a force in the kind of downtown Houston community. People who were involved in the arts and music scene, they knew of the Freethinkers. They knew of our activism. Even if they didn't agree with everything we were about, they knew that we were out there doing good in the community, and they wanted to work together and collaborate, right? And so we were able to create this really beautiful kind of nexus of art, music, and basically culture, you know. And I think that's really what we desperately need. But I noticed in that experience that most of the activism, including I think what we were doing in the beginning, until we kind of found a way to do it differently, was just reacting. Hey, they're building a pipeline over here. Let's go protest this thing. Or the cops killed somebody here. Let's go march on this thing. You know, we're just like letting them dictate where we put our energy. Go here, do this, do this. You know, it's just totally reactionary. And again, doesn't mean we shouldn't react and respond when things go down. But if that's all you're doing, then you're letting them dictate your energy, your time, your money, your experience, your focus, instead of trying to be proactive. And that's very much what I try to do with my work, what we're doing with the Greater Reset, is to be forward thinking, right? If we can see the writing on the wall, then why wait till it gets worse to do something about it, right? Why not think, what can we do? And so in terms of simple things that people can do, I mean, a lot of my work focuses, especially lately, I just released the second edition of my my most recent book, How to Opt Out of the Technocratic State, somewhere up there. And it's all about considering the growth of digital technology and how this is leading to, or can lead to, less privacy and less individual liberty. Now, in the best cases, technology provides those things as well, or can help, but obviously that's not the majority of the technology we're seeing today. And that's not the vision of the people that we are contending here with. The Great Reset, their vision, this world of the fourth industrial revolution, is a world of social credit scores and digital IDs and digital wallets and central bank digital currencies and all this kind of stuff that, again, can be very overwhelming to imagine. But if we see that, if we hear them and we see in their writing that this is what they're talking about, this is what they envision, and they're putting all their energy into it, then we ought to, I believe, think about how we can get out of those systems as soon as possible, which, depending on your living situation, will be more difficult depending on how entangled you are. But at a most basic level, stop using Google. There's one simple one. Stop using Google. And that's not going to stop the technocracy, but in your personal life, it'll help you stop feeding that machine, which is just learning off of you. Also, just on the moral tip, like supporting a company that is literally trying to enslave you, and, you know, not giving them the money. And then there are also better search engines to use. I mean, I use Google in addition to the alternative search engines I use when I'm doing research to try to get a more full picture. But it's become more and more clear, and I'm sure everybody listening to this podcast is familiar, that if you just use a Google search engine, you're getting a filtered version of the world around you. I mean, just like if you only rely on a Facebook or social media to show you the truth about the world, when we know these platforms are very heavily sanitized, fact-checked, people have been removed and banned. So if you just trust that, oh, Google is going to show me what I need to know about the world, you're going to miss out on a lot of information. You're going to miss out on thinking for yourself. And now this is being confirmed with actual research and data showing that people are becoming dumber by relying on Google and Google Maps and all these kinds of tools, because at a most basic level, we're just giving over our thinking process. Like, instead of in the past where you had a question arise, you might stop and think and ponder it on your own, kind of try to come to your own conclusions based on your past experience, your research and stuff like that. It's so much easier just to say, let me ask Google, or Alexa, tell me this thing, or Echo, whatever they call it. And obvious, there's benefits there, right? I get that, convenience, sure, speed, etc. But it's a giving up of a little bit of our humanity. So I mean, even just that simple step, getting off Google, and then taking that idea and kind of extrapolating a little bit further, right? And start thinking like for example, the computer I'm on is a Linux computer that I've spent the last 2 years switching over everything to Linux. And the smartphone that my wife has, I don't use a phone anymore, but the phone that she uses is my partner Ramiro, who helps with the Greater Reset. His company Above Phone, they make de-Googled phones that they sell loaded with privacy apps, open source, decentralized apps that allow you to do all the things you're used to, like a Maps or a YouTube, etc., but without supporting those companies, without feeding them your data, right? So I mean, there definitely are, especially when it comes to technology, small steps that you can start to do now without getting overwhelmed with the bigger picture, right? I mean, you're looking at the future and like, oh my God, they want to enslave me in the system, but you feel like you're super entangled in it. I get that. Like, I can empathize. It's just, and this is what I write about in the new book, is you got to start practical with like things that are attainable. What's in your grasp? Like, you can change not using Google, like right now, if you choose to. You can go into your browser and change your default search engine from Google to some other alternative that you prefer. And there are more and more of them out there. And there you go, right? Now that's going to require maybe learning a new type of search engine, getting used to the, as silly as it sounds, the interface, right? Because these are subtle little things that keep people from changing. Like, oh, I'm so used to Google Maps, I don't even want to try this new open source alternative because it looks different, right? And then if you're not willing to try something new, learn a new skill, meet new people, work with people who you might not disagree, you might not always agree with, I got to challenge whether or not you really want to be free. And it just depending on how much time, energy, and money and willingness you have, that's really what's going to determine what your future looks like, right? Because again, we see they're building this great reset, this technocracy. Me and you can talk solutions all day, but if the person hearing them isn't ready to do anything, then that's on them, right? I mean, ultimately, it's up to every person to decide for them, their family, their living situation, whatever they got. Okay, what am I willing to do to make sure that I can continue to thrive into the future? And in the book, the last little thing I'll mention, I actually put together this formula that I just call the freedom formula. And it's super simple. It's just this idea of, the first kind of part is, what is it that freedom looks like to you? So what's your desired level of freedom? Which is something that I recognize over the years, not everybody stops and even thinks about. We know that we want something, but how many times have you stopped and said, okay, what does that really look like? Okay, I want freedom of speech. I want freedom of movement. I want to be able to grow my own food. I want to have land, these kinds, you really think about what is it that you're aiming for, right? So that's the first thing. Understand what you are aiming for, what this vision of a better world for you looks like. Maybe you just want to be left alone, right? Maybe it's nothing fancy. I just want to be left alone. Leave me alone. I got my land, my house. Leave me alone. Let me live my life. Know that vision well and understand it. You add that to what you're willing to do to get it, and that will equal your actual experience of freedom. So if over here you got this vision of like homestead, family, kids, clean water, free range kids, raising animals, doing the whole thing. But right here in this second part of the equation, what you're willing to do to get it, you start to examine your habits and you're like, okay, well, I haven't saved up any money. I haven't looked up even some properties in my area or thought about, well, where would this piece of land be? I haven't done any research on homeschooling to get my kids out of the indoctrination centers. You see in like the disconnect between, oh, you have this claim, this is the vision you have, but then in your, what are you willing to do to get it? You're not really doing much to get it, right? So that would require a change of habits, a change of lifestyle, and say, you know what, if I really want to achieve this goal, then I need to change these different areas. I need to put some action behind this. I need to, get motivated, whatever you got to do. That's up to you. I can't do it for you or tell you what to do, but then that will allow you to achieve that. Now, if you don't fix that disconnect and you have this is what I want, but then what you're actually willing to do is totally disconnected from that, your experience will be not what you were hoping for, obviously. I mean, it sounds so common sense, but I feel like that's how practical sometimes we need to think about where we're headed to really get it. Like, it's okay, I have this vision. I ain't doing anything to make it happen. It's definitely not going to happen, right? Okay, I have this vision. Now I'm starting to get motivated. I'm doing some research. I'm taking some steps. And I get it. We're all tired, exhausted. Some people are working 60, 70 hours a week, like just to make it. And the idea of doing anything else after that is exhausting, but we're talking about the future of our lives, our children, humanity. I feel like it's probably worth everything we got.
I think you're right about that. And I love the way that you really illustrate that, just to do one little thing. Like, yeah, of course, we all dream of like waking up in like some Garden of Eden, or something like that. But obviously that's going to take a whole lot more work. But I really like where you're at to try to just encourage people to do one thing. I just finished reading the book Atomic Habits. And it's a really good book. It too seems very commonsensical. It's like, well, do something that you need to do, and then allow yourself to do something that you want to do. Learn to leverage yourself and leverage the actions that you take. And any little bit definitely helps. And I know people for years and years would say, vote for your dollars. That's also something to consider too, right? Like, not going to buy things from Amazon, Walmart as much as possible. And places like that, right? But yeah,
those are all important.
Absolutely. Like every little bit, every little tiny bit, it does add up over time. So I think it's really useful and practical what you're talking about. Just doing these smaller steps. And yeah, and as I said before, I've always been impressed with your ability to produce. And so if you wouldn't mind sharing with us a little bit about, what motivates you, why you do what you do, and how you are able to create so much content that's useful and not just drivel. I'd love to hear a little bit about that, if you wouldn't mind sharing with us.
Yeah. I mean, I'm always happy to share more about my process because, like you said earlier, I kind of I get this question often, or when, we'll be doing events and people will ask my wife, how does he do so much, something like that. And, it really is time management. Honestly, like I'm a space case just as much as anybody else. I can be easily distracted and procrastinator. It may not seem like it, but maybe it's just because I aspire to do even more than I am currently doing. But it's also kind of what you were saying there about atomic habits that I do make sure. I mean, just like I'll give you an example today, like wake up, go to the gym, come back, eat some food. I had an interview for an hour before this, and I'm doing this interview. I've got about an hour break and then another interview. And so it's like, I'm looking at my calendar. I make sure that I've scheduled things. And in between that, I have a to-do list. I mean, I really don't think that my brain would operate as well without to-do lists. And I used to live, and I still do, I think to some degree, live my life very much like in the flow and just kind of let things go where they are. And I still have some of that, but also it's like, I want to kind of grab time by the horn, so to speak, and like do what I need to do. I have a lot of ambition, a lot of goals in this life. And I know that sitting around doing nothing, which I kind of feel like I did a lot in my past life when I was younger, getting into drugs and everything else, that now I feel like I've just got so much that I want to do. I kind of keep myself motivated. I also did, I don't think I have it here. I wrote another book. Actually I do. I wrote another book a couple years ago called The Holistic Self-Assessment. People can download this one for free as well if they want. And you see, it's like super thin, super simple, because I tried to take some of the best ideas of my own personal experience, as well as books like, say, Atomic Habits or was it 4-Hour Work Week, just other things that got like little pieces, you take what you can. But mainly like where this came from was when I got locked up. I mentioned getting into drugs. I got addicted to drugs at 18, 19. I got locked up when I was 20 years old, right before I turned 21. And between 2005 and 2008, I did 18 months in Texas state prisons and kind of just did a year, got out, did that whole thing for a little bit. And that was also, though, where I started to really wake up. That's where I started to do a lot of my healing on the spiritual side of things, working on my relationship with my dad and just all kinds of stuff that was necessary for me to be doing what I'm doing now. And that was like waking up before I ever started questioning like this kind of research, conspiracies, so-called, things like that. I had this, oh no, I'm locked up in prison. I can't leave. I have no control over my life. Like, how the heck did I get to here? What the heck am I doing? Kind of moment, And that's when I started really getting into like meditation, prayer, just opening up in general, just like, all right, I need to figure out why I'm here. And a lot of the steps that I took myself through, I put them into this book. And it's just super basic, like things like getting to know yourself, level of self-awareness. But I talk about specifically, like the way the book works is it's every chapter starts with a question and then ends with simple exercises. And it's like got space so people can write in it and stuff. But for example, the first question is, who am I? And then we go into, what are my principles? What are my goals? What are my habits? Are they aligned with my principles and goals? Where are my words inconsistent with my action? How can I think holistically about my goals? Are my relationships in line with my principles and goals? And what are the roots of my inconsistencies and my fears? And then just developing like new habits and new rituals to kind of get you, like I was saying earlier, to align like, hey, this is what I aspire to be, but this is where I'm not really adding up. It's not about like, oh no, I'm such a horrible person, woe is me. It's like, this is an opportunity for growth. You can say, all right, I'm not really living up to what I would like to be or what I see myself. Okay.
All right.
There we go. Cool. Did I cut out for a second?
Sorry, yeah, you did. No, that's okay. You cut out for a second, but you were just talking about, measuring where you're at and being objective about it, right? Like kind of taking a self inventory.
Exactly. The self-assessment. That's why I call it the holistic self-assessment. So you're looking at the whole area of your life. Start here. Who am I? What are my principles, goals, habits, relationships? Looking at all these areas, trying to identify the inconsistencies. I mean, so that kind of thing has really played into just the way I live my life a lot. And part of that, like the last part of the book, I give some tips and I mention like to-do lists and different things that I wouldn't say it works for every single person, because obviously we all learn differently and work differently. For some people, I think maybe being super loose about things does work, and they just cram a whole bunch of work in and 5 hours and just get it all done. Whereas for me, because I am interested in so many different things, I mean, I have the Conscious Resistance, the Pyramid of Power, the Freedom Cell Network, the Greater Reset, my books. I'm putting out an album, my music soon. I've got a relationship. It's like there's a lot of things I'm managing here. And the only way I'm able to get them done is to like have a daily to-do list. So like I wake up today, I had, for example, to talk to you, got some other things. I even have to make sure to because I'll forget to eat. Okay, stop and go eat or go on a walk, get off the computer for a little bit, those kind of things. I make sure that those things are part of or like I mentioned, the gym or going on a bike ride or something like that. Because I've just realized over the years of if I let myself, I'll just get so into it and then I'll get burned out and I'll hate doing this. So I've gotten better over the years at like balancing it, knowing that I am able to pay my bills with writing. I write for the Last American Vagabond. So the only 100% commitment I have to do outside of things I want to do for myself is write an article a week, and I can keep getting paid. I do a lot more than that, but that's like, if I do nothing else this week, I have to at least do that. And so I make sure that that's on the list at some point. And then I also just make sure that all these different projects I have. So like I got a to-do list. Is there anything I need to do for the Pyramid of Power today? No, that's kind of on hold right now. Is there anything I need to do for my album? Okay, no, my producer's handling that. Do I need to write an article today? Okay, do I have any videos planned for today? Any interviews? Just making sure that all these different areas of goals that I have, that I'm at least taking one step forward every day. And sometimes it's a lot of steps forward, but at least I don't, it doesn't get left behind, and I'm just kind of all the ships are moving forward bit by bit. And I mean, it feels great to be able to accomplish the things that I care about. And for example, like we're ending this month and I can look at my calendar and see all the different appointments or calls or interviews or things that I have going on, and that I've been able to successfully achieve all of them and stay sane and eat good and not feel driven crazy. It's a lot to handle, but it feels good to be able to, know that I can manage my time that way.
Yeah, I love that too. Being able to look behind you and see what you've, accomplished. One of the things they talk about it in Atomic Habits, but I'd heard it even before that, was like the Jerry Seinfeld joke a day thing. He just that was his thing. He was like, I'm going to write a joke a day. And then he has this big wall calendar where he just puts an X every single day where he writes a joke. And then he's so motivated by seeing that he hasn't skipped a day that it kind of helps him to push forward, a little bit. It definitely helps. I love that too. I can look back in the Google Calendar, see who have I talked to, which, I need to get off the Google Calendar. Speaking of,
it's everywhere, man.
Yeah.
Hey, check out CryptPad as an alternative. I don't know. They probably have a calendar, but CryptPad, if anybody wants to look that up, it's like a Google Docs, all those things that you would use Google for, but an alternative kind of privacy version. And another website is nomoregoogle.com. It'll give you alternatives to every Google tool. And then privacytools.io. Those are ones that are like just good places to start looking up other alternatives to Google. Cause it pops up everywhere, man. And it's just about us being consistent, right? I mean, I don't do these things to be like, why are you guys not living as pure as I am or something like that? It's just, this is what feels right to me. And if my particular choices or like, let's push as far as we can mentality encourages other people. It's like, hey, you know what? I can just switch things over. Okay, it's going to be a little inconvenient because I got all my shit set up on Google Calendar and my appointments and everything. But again, if that's like the level of that, oh, obstacle, can't go any further, then I don't know how far we're going to make it, you know?
Right. No doubt. Yeah. Like there's, you bug out, you know, there's not like trouts just jumping into the pan at your campfire, you know, it's not going to be like that. That's so funny. But no, those are great. Those are great tools. And like you said, you know, anything that seems appealing or that's convenient, start there. Just start with the little thing. And everybody's, like you said, has different goals, wanting to be in a different place. Like that one little action can make a huge difference. And I'm going to definitely be linking some of these. I'm writing stuff down in the show notes so people can check that stuff out. So anything that's really helpful, you know,
and we also inspire each other too. And I mean, that's the thing, right? Is like, if you
Absolutely.
start taking these steps in your friend circle and then just, you know, conversations will come up like, oh no, I stopped using Google recently. I'm actually doing this other thing. And oh, I got a alternative phone now. It's Google, you know, that's just like, people are like, what? That's a thing? Because I mean, I'm not here to like lecture or like attack anybody, because the fact of the matter is all these people that are involved in these, you know, this technocracy, they have monopolized the world around us. It's not like you could just go to the T-Mobile phone or the local electronics store and buy a computer that isn't Apple, Google, Microsoft, etc. Like, you have to go out of your way. And thankfully, there are more companies and people who are thinking in terms of this. Like, I don't have the tech knowledge or skills, so that's why I promote people who I know who are like, hey, he's got this other device. But there are companies now starting to make, like, from the bottom up, manufactured computers that don't have spyware built into them, no Microsoft, no Apple, Google. But again, like, if you don't know that exists because nobody's ever told you exists, then you're just going to continue going to Best Buy or wherever and buying the same old thing that's got NSA backdoors built in and stuff like that. So it's just about spreading these ideas more. And I think that, as I was saying, like, if one of us does it and then people around us, we influence our little circle, and then people realize that there are alternatives out there, because clearly these companies have, you know, the lion's share of the economy out there when it comes to technology. That's just what everybody does. It's like, oh, do you have an Android or an Apple? That's it. That's the limit of the competition right there, right? Like,
yeah. It's very either or. It's like a two-party system at that point, right? The only thing that's more powerful than a monopoly is a duopoly.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, that's fantastic. That's great. I love that. And yeah, I think, you know, people keep in mind too that this might blow your mind, but the internet's pretty fake, right? Like, it's doctored up as far as the opinions on there. So, you know, you might not see, and I think that's a big part of it, is people don't know these things exist. They certainly aren't seeing them in Reddit or like some other, you know, type of thread when they're goofing around, looking around the internet, because they're just going to delete those comments and, you know, alter the way that we see reality and perceive it.
Or they're being told that only terrorists would want that much privacy. Why would you? What's wrong? Why would you not want Bill Gates in your computer?
Have you not done any? You haven't done anything wrong. There's no reason.
What do you have to hide?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Well, cool. So yeah, it's going to get really interesting with a brain chip thing. I was talking to my friend. I was like, "Are you ready to get roasted by a cyborg that knows all your secrets?" Like, that could happen. Oh man. But I don't want to jump into that, but let's talk just to wrap things up, just kind of let people know, you know, where they could find you and a little bit maybe more about the Greater Reset. I'm definitely going to be tuning in, and I will have all those links available for everybody in the show notes for sure.
Yeah. Thank you, brother, again, for having me on, and
my pleasure, dude.
Give me a chance to share a little bit about what I do. So the Greater Reset, the main website, thegreaterreset.org, it's happening January 18th to the 22nd. So actually today, as we're recording this, we are 30 days away. Which is really exciting over here for myself and my team. And I know the Texas crew as well. We've been working on this 6 months out. Obviously, it's like a lot of event planning and all that stuff. But clearly, like, what I'm discussing here, it's much more than just let's get a bunch of people together and, you know, have a fun time. It's that there's so much positive energy, positive momentum coming out of it, both in Texas and Mexico. And I think even if you watch from home, you hopefully can feel the excitement that myself and the other people who are attending and speaking share, because we're truly trying to offer the people something, an alternative vision to this World Economic Forum, Great Reset, et cetera plan. I think that we need to be putting just as much energy, if not more, that they do into their plans and their vision, and trying to think about what do our families want for 2030 and beyond. We're going into 2023 here in just a week and a half. 2023, they call it Agenda 2030 because they would like their vision to be complete by that. That gives us 7 years. That's not a lot of time to just be sitting around and doing nothing. So
Right.
our goal is to host this event. We meet, as I said, every year in January. At the same time the World Economic Forum is meeting. We're offering alternative ideas. So if you want to learn more about permaculture and growing your own food and trying to get independent from the mainstream food production systems, wherever you live, I mean, you're going to be hearing from some great permaculture teachers and experts in that area. We're going to be having a whole day dedicated to take back our tech. That's every day has a different theme. So we have 5 main themes. Day 4 is take back our tech. So we'll be hearing from my buddy Ramiro talking about his Above phone and all the tools they have. We're going to be hearing from this company Start9, who makes alternative laptops, privacy-based laptops. We're going to be hearing from projects that are trying to build the infrastructure of the next privacy-based internet and all kinds of really stuff, some of which goes right over my head, but I just trust and know that these people are working just as hard as I am in their particular sphere, right? And then on the final day, it's going to be really cool. The final day is called Building Free and Conscious Communities. And so we're going to be hearing from a few people who have communities that already exist in Mexico, a couple from Texas. I think there's one coming from Ecuador, and just sharing their experiences about like, hey, this is how we did it. This is how we organized. This is how we, just giving people, I think, again, helping people see with their eyes and their ears that this is possible, that you can actually become independent. You don't necessarily have to move to Mexico to do it, but the idea that we can each become more independent from the grid that they're building, smart grid, power grid, education system, banking system, all that stuff, and trying to create new systems, parallel systems. That is what our whole event is dedicated to, is saying that, we need to focus on our alternative vision, and we're inviting people to come join us. So we're getting together January 18th to the 22nd for 5 days in Central Texas, and then also in Central Mexico, where I live. And we have people like Del Bigtree of the High Wire coming down to Mexico. We've got a lot, I can't even remember them off the top of my head, but we have speakers in both locations. We have a couple people streaming in, like Christian Ice Age Farmer and Catherine Austin Fitz. They'll be streaming in.
Awesome.
Unfortunately, they couldn't make it, but they're going to be sharing some really empowering messages. And yeah, wherever you're at, you can watch for free. There's not even a registration required or anything like that. Just go to thegreaterreset.org on the day of the event. And we will be recording the full thing and releasing it for free as well afterwards, which we have done for all previous 3 events. When this event concludes, we'll have over 160 hours of free content, all solutions focused. That is good. It's on the website and on our Odyssey channel for the Greater Reset. People can hear from these folks, because this is just our effort to say, like, yeah, let's get together. Let's have a good time. Let's, feel empowered and connect to other like-minded people. Let's show people at home, that there is something positive happening. But ultimately what matters is, once the activation ends, if everybody takes these ideas and implements them, then I think we will create something new, and we will create an alternative to this world they're building, and give those who are coming after us, the young generations coming in, a choice. Do you want to own nothing and be happy? Or do you want to see what else we're building? You want to, join us in creating something new? I don't know what it looks like. I don't think any of us can. But if we don't start laying that foundation now, then the coming generations will have only one option, and it will be that you'll own nothing and be happy, great reset dream. So we're dedicated to trying to provide an alternative, and we invite anybody who can support, join, share to come join the movement. Thank you, brother.
Dude, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. I'll make sure greaterreset.org and all of the links that you mentioned during the stream are available, so that people can just check them out at the bottom. Derrick Broze of the Conscious Resistance, thank you so much for all your contributions. I've been a big fan of your work for a long time, so it's great to finally be able to chat with you, and thank you face to face. Thanks for taking the time, my friend.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
Cheers.